Welcome to the Service to Syndication Podcast, where we interview the biggest and most successful real estate entrepreneurs, investors, capital raisers in the world who have worn the uniform of this great country, those who provide services to our men and women in uniform, and other service-oriented professionals to provide you with the tool sets, the mindsets, and the skill sets to help you conquer your dreams and goals in real estate and to use this wealth creation vehicle so you can live a more successful, happy, and fulfilled life of generosity and prosperity. If what you desire is time, lifestyle, and financial freedom, you've come to the right place. We will bring to you the best real estate entrepreneurs who will give you the insights, the knowledge, experience, skills, so you can go out and crush it in whatever real estate asset class you desire. So grab a pencil and paper, sit back, and enjoy the ride on the Service to Syndication Podcast. Hello, my servicemen and servicewomen and other service providers. Welcome to another episode of the Service to Syndication Real Estate Podcast. I am your host, Cedric Marlow. I am a U.S. Navy vet. Here on the Service to Syndication Real Estate Podcast, we interview the most successful real estate entrepreneurs, investors, and capital raisers in the world where most have donned the uniforms of our great country. We aim to provide the tool sets, the mindsets, and skill sets for you to achieve your personal and business goals while using real estate as a wealth creation vehicle to help you live a more successful, happy, and fun-filled life. I am super excited today because I have with me Mr. Jacob V. Marshall, who is top-notch entrepreneur and oil and gas investor. But before I properly introduce our exciting guest to you, I want to ask a favor of you. Please, if you get some value out of this interview, if you get some type of insight, mindset shift, if you learn a new skill, new information, receive inspiration or motivation to go out and take some progress in your life, please share this episode with some of your friends. Send it to someone you know who might be or could be interested in real estate. Share it on your social media, post it on your wall, or share it in your stories. Help us spread our message while you help others. And for all of you who share this episode, I want to say thank you. Again, everyone, I have with me Mr. Jacob V. Marshall. He is a seasoned entrepreneur, business owner, strategic leader, and 7 times decorated former Army officer. He is known for driving growth across multiple industries with a strong foundation in the oil and gas sector. With advanced degrees including an MBA and an MPA, Jacob brings a unique blend of private sector execution and public sector insight to his work. Throughout his career, he has led multi-million-dollar projects, navigated complex stakeholder environments, and consistently delivered results through disciplined execution, strategic clarity, and forward-thinking approach to business development. As a serial entrepreneur and acquisition-focused operator, Jacob has built and scaled ventures rooted in integrity, accountability, and long-term value creation. His leadership style emphasizes collaboration, problem-solving, and developing high-performing teams, all while maintaining a servant leadership mindset. Beyond business, Jacob is deeply committed to giving back through mentorship and community involvement, making him a powerful voice on leadership, entrepreneurship, and building meaningful success in today's dynamic business landscape. First off, welcome, Jacob.
Hey, welcome. I would say thank you for having me, and also thank you for doing this. I think what you're doing is a great thing. I wish more of us were doing this. I think that that's a perfect venue to let other people know, just to inspire and let other people know that there's a lot of resources out there for us. So thanks again for having. I consider this a really great honor. So thanks again.
All right, I appreciate it. So Jacob, before you became this very successful person I see in front of me, in about 2 to 3 minutes, give our listeners a little bit of your backstory, like where you grew up, how was your upbringing, and what in your past shifted your mindset into becoming the person you are today.
Sure. So thanks for asking. It's actually interesting. I will address the last part first. Really kind of what shifted mindset to where I'm at now. if I'm going to be completely honest, is failing. I am 100% a person who failed forward. I got a couple things right, but really it's just, I tried and things. And every time when you fail, every time you fail, it's an opportunity. So just kind of, and I'll tie back in that in a second, but really grew up in Ohio, Northern Ohio, went to school, and once I got out of high school, I did pretty well in high school. Went down to Alabama, and I actually started at Tuskegee University. That's where I started, and that's where really, that's really where my failure starts. So I get into Tuskegee. I'm in the yard. You want to fit in. You want to fit in with everybody. And the short story is, it was more important to me to fit in than to focus on my studies. And when grades came out, it showed. And I did. Yeah, and so I didn't do well initially at Tuskegee just because I wasn't committed, I wasn't focused the way I needed to be. My grandmother, who played an integral role in where I am right now, told me that she wanted to allow me to go ahead and move in with her. And I lived with my grandmother for roughly 2 years. I got into the junior college, and it was very strict. I really didn't have any friends. It was just, you're going to go to church, you're going to have this little part-time job, and you're going to do your studies. And for roughly 2 years straight, that's what it was. I got my grades back up, and then I got into Auburn. I transferred over into Auburn University. And then from Auburn University, honestly, let's see, I double majored in Auburn University and then got into ROTC, graduated. I started, and I did enlisted reserve while I was in ROTC, then graduated as an officer. And then from there, airborne school, ranger school, deployment. And that's really kind of what built everything for me. But I credit my grandmother a lot, because when I fell on my face, my grandmother gave me some very, very harsh lessons just about accountability and holding yourself to a standard. And I remember some things that she said to me that I never forgot. My parents had spent a pretty good bit of money, in order for me to go to school. And I remember her telling me, that I squandered the opportunity. And that resonated with me a lot. And I think from that day forward, I wanted to show her or prove to her that I wasn't going to do the same thing twice. And I was like, I would never be a person where, I want my parents to be proud of me. I want my grandparents to be proud of me. I want them to say, this is our grandson and this is what he accomplished. So that's really kind of what set the tone for me. And then, of course, military, I had some pretty good wins there. And then going into the oil and gas sector, had some pretty good wins there. But really, my entire thing is just failing as a part of life. And on the other side of failure is really what you want. That's where the win is. But sometimes in order to become who we are, you have to lose who you were. And sometimes it can be difficult, but it's very much a process. So that's kind of where, and then from there, I moved on to go into the entrepreneur space. And so now at this point, I created my own company. I bought two businesses, and I created a real estate company, and then I also own a retail property, and then also own a multi-unit property. And then I'm working on a multi-unit residential property. And I'm working on a potential third deal right now, which will be my third business. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it works out.
Yes, fingers crossed. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You have to love the wisdom, the older generation,
Yes, yeah.
grandparents and things like that. That's, I took a lot of that stuff in myself when I, as I was coming up, the things that they would say, or, things that they would just talk about, and I took those things to heart as well. And, and that's what has grown me into becoming the person that I am as well. And of course, my mom in that belt anyway. That's another story for another.
I think we all have stories about
that. Absolutely. So, as you just mentioned, your entrepreneurship journey. So what initially drew you to that entrepreneurship journey and your leadership?
Sure. I would say I felt that really the military, I have to give a lot of credit to the military. I have to give a lot of credit to the soldiers I worked with, and then also a lot of the leaders that impacted me and invested in me. I mean, they poured their energy into me. So that really is really what set the foundation for where I am now. I did, because of all the lessons I learned when I was in the military, I did pretty well in oil and gas. And then I would say towards the end of my tenure in oil and gas, I started realizing I can 100% do this for myself. I had a pretty good idea of what business was. I had a pretty good idea how money worked. I knew how to network with people. I knew how to connect with people. But really, most importantly, going back to the military, I knew how to take care, we said taking care of soldiers. I knew how to take care of people. I knew how to run a team. And when it hit me, it's interesting because when it hit me, it was like, oh my gosh, I can 100% do this myself. And so I decided I'm just going to go ahead and take that leap and do it.
Exactly. So did your MBA and MPA influence how you think about
It,
business, versus someone who may mainly learn through experience?
it did. And here's the thing. This is what I would say to anyone, if you have an opportunity to go ahead and get the formal education, definitely take it if you have an opportunity to do it. But by no means, and I stand on this, by no means does that prevent or bar anybody from achieving that. Because if I were to say what I really learned, again, my MPA and my MBA is really what it taught. It doesn't really teach you necessarily what you need to do to run a business. Really, what I think it teaches you is it teaches you how to ask the right questions.
Hmm.
And it teaches you to recognize what you don't know. That's really what I would say I took the most from my training, from my schooling. But I would say that the vast majority of everything I've learned about business really is from doing it. It's interesting. I was actually just talking about this recently with someone else, with a friend of mine. I said, to start your own business is almost it's almost the best MBA course that you could do. I mean, because you get exposed to so much, and you have to make it work. And you have to kind of think through the process. What does this look like? How does this work? Who do I need to know? What is it that I don't know that I don't know? So that definitely played a pretty big role. But now being in this space, I would not trade this for anything. I love every bit of what I do. I mean, here we are. This is a Saturday, and I'm sitting here in my office, and I love it. I mean, I take so much joy out of it. I take so much joy out of this, and it's just an opportunity, to take care of people.
Right. Yeah. And I agree with you as well. There's the book knowledge, and which is great because, a lot of times it may teach you structure and things like that, but it's the doing, it's the getting
It
your
is
hands in the dirt, actually doing the work. It's where you really become disciplined and you learn what it really takes to
yes,
run that business. From a book level, sure, they can tell you, what it theoretically what it should look like or what things should do. But when you're,
exactly.
like you said, when you're the CEO of your own business or founder, that's the best lesson there. Totally.
It
Yeah.
is, and you also learn from experiences. And I mean, I'm a firm believer that every experience is an experience that's in your favor.
Mhm.
One of the things I say oftentimes is it's either going to be a great outcome or it's going to be a great story. Because even if you fail, if you or I don't even know if I would call it failure, but if you don't do as expected, now
Mhm.
you have like a landing ground, and now you can just recalibrate from there. And what did I learn? And then also you can learn from the people around you as well. Uh,
Yes.
you can have. I've had some really, really phenomenally great leaders, but I've also had some leaders that were, I would say, less than phenomenal. Where it kind of teaches you, okay, well, if I'm in this position, I don't want that to be my legacy, or I don't want people to necessarily, avoid me, when I come around. I want people to feel like that they're supported, that they're supported by me, and that my interests and that their interests are my interests.
Yes. Yeah. Got it. Now, in your bio, I mentioned discipline, execution. So you emphasize those items, discipline, execution, and strategic clarity. How did you develop those traits early on?
I would say from really, I honestly have to go back to the military on this. Everything that I learned in military, whether it was in basic training or whether the different schools, airborne, ranger, and then especially being when we were downrange Afghanistan,
Mhm.
you learn execution to a T. You understand that you have to perform to a standard. Everyone rises to the standard, and the standard is the standard. You hold yourself accountable for everything. But it also means that you have to be honest with yourself. I've done some things pretty well, but I've definitely failed at some things too.
Right.
And it's okay. But you gotta take that, you gotta be a little bit humble, recognize, where you fell short, and then also recognize, that you have relationships, you have friends, you have resources that you can take advantage of that will where you can kind of help shore up, the points where you're not so great at.
Yeah, it's definitely great to have those friends, business partners, associates, whatever that you can lean on when those times come, wholeheartedly.
Exactly.
Yeah. So now, what are some of the most important skills someone needs if they want to grow into a high level operator or entrepreneur? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm actually really glad you asked that question. Relationships, relationships, relationships. Relationships are everything. If you have an ability to create and to build relationships, you will do well. And I will say this too, because I'm probably more of I'm definitely more of an extrovert at this point in my life. But I did not start off as an extrovert. I was definitely much more introverted, but it's something that you can definitely get better at something, and you just do it a little bit at a time. The example I like to use a lot is, you remember that movie, The Shawshank Redemption?
Yes.
And how he got out, and he just took he had the little hammer and just kept on the wall and dug his way, dug a tunnel and got all the way out.
Yeah.
But really, that's really all it is. You don't people Sometimes people think that all of a sudden overnight you have to become this great relationship builder, and that's not the case. That's not. Just start with small. Start with something small. Start with getting involved with certain meetings. I would definitely say a great place to start if you have any opportunity to join professional organizations, any type of speaking organizations, chamber of commerce, young professional groups, even like a Rotary Club. I mean, you would be surprised. There's so many resources out there, mentor peer groups that you can join. But I would definitely say if you can create relationships, and I would say actually one of the best books I've ever read on relationships, by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Hands down, probably one of bet. I mean, you could buy it for like $13. And I think it was written in like maybe what, the 30s or 40s or something like that. Hands down, probably one of the best self-help books out there in terms of how to connect with other people. And one of the tenets that it talks about in there is that if you can learn to connect with other people, then they will want to connect to you.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned being extroverted or, early on you were introverted. And that's been me. Been an introvert, pretty much my whole life, but I call myself now an extrovert introvert,
Introverted.
you know, I will sit and, I'm in masterminds and you name it, conferences, whatever. And I can talk to you all day long about whatever the business subject is, or what is it that you're doing, what I'm doing, what lessons I've learned, and all of
Right.
that. And I'm not going to lie to you. This is where the introvert comes in. When I go back to my room, I pass out. Like I'm
You ready?
exhausted. I am exhausted because I've pushed myself to be that person. And realistically, I guess I'm more extroverted now, like kind of like you're saying. But yeah, it takes a lot, and you definitely, and going back to the relationship thing, yeah, relationships wholeheartedly. And those groups are great groups. I'm in the Rotary Club. My next one is to jump to the Chamber of Commerce. Uh,
Exactly.
I just heard someone must have been listening to a podcast or something the last couple of days, and they mentioned that. I was like, oh yeah, and that wasn't the first time I heard it, but I just getting to join. But
Right.
definitely will be joining that as well. Yeah, you're great,
And,
great.
and and something I want to circle back to when you're talking about putting out all that energy, being extroverted, and how it makes you, how it, when you're done, you're kind of tired, from putting out all that energy, but that's another thing that's great about being in the military. When you're in the military, we learn, it becomes a second reflex how to adapt.
Yeah.
And that is, and I think that that is something that is characteristically that sets military people apart and also gives military people an edge because we have an ability, an innate ability that's trained where we can look at a situation, we can assess it, and then we can kind of take the steps back as far as where we're at, and then we can kind of caliber, we kind of change ourselves in order to adapt to that situation, and meet that mission.
Yep, agreed. So Jacob, what habits or routines have had the biggest impact on your performance over the years?
I would say one, pretty avid about fitness. Fitness has been really, really good for me. For me, I mean, I love fitness just for what it is, but for me, it kind of keeps me disciplined a little bit. It's also my way of kind of releasing any type of frustrations that I might have at work, because it happens with everything. Sometimes you might have you might have a up day, you might have a down day, you might have it might be a little bit anxious, depressed, or whatever. Fitness is a really good way to channel that. Something else I do a lot is I always try to make sure that I'm not necessarily like the biggest person in the room. I try to surround myself with people who are much more successful than myself, people who have gone further, people who have done more, people who look at what I'm doing, and it's cute. It's like, oh, I remember my first company I started, but it's nice when you're around other people like that, because when you start surrounding yourself with other successful people, it's like they say, birds of a feather. It really does rub off. It really 100% rubs off. And you don't even have to be like necessarily like friends. I have different friends and connections for different things. I have people that I speak to when it comes to like relationships. I was a bachelor for a long time, and then I got married. It was it was a very different game, different rules. So you find people who are in the position you want to be. So you link up with a couple of people who have really good relationships. And those are kind of people that you bounce stuff off of, whether it's business, people who are really, really good with money, people who are really good with relationships. So that's really what I credit myself, that I do pretty well. Definitely the fitness part, but definitely making sure that I surround myself with people who are doing better than me, people who have integrity, who have character. But also you want people who are going to be honest. And if you're, let's say you're going down a path that's just not really the path, you want people who are in your circle that will say, "Hey, Jacob, I don't know. I don't think this is the way that you want to go. This isn't the way you want to handle it," because those people will also keep you out of trouble and keep you from making a mistake or making forced errors based on emotion.
Yeah, I agree that you have to
Yeah.
have those people to, kind of push back a little bit, like,
Yeah.
hey, maybe instead of making this right, make a left,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, they're your guardrails.
Yes.
I mean, I like to think that I'm fairly decent most of the time, but I mean, like all of us, we're susceptible to sometimes creating a narrative that maybe might not be there, or might not be real, or maybe we're looking through, maybe we've got a rose-colored lens, and what we think it is is really not, and you need people who can be honest with you and just say, hey, it's not really a good look, or someone who can just tell you the decision that you made. Like, yeah, I definitely have had some leaders tell me that I disappointed them, and I'll be honest, it stings a lot, but the growth in that moment is so great. So yeah, I would definitely say it is so important to have people that are like that, people who are who have a foundation, who have values, because they will kind of help keep you on the straight and narrow. And there'll be people who will, they'll be honest
Yeah.
with you, and that's what you need. You want people to be candid and be straightforward.
Yeah. So you've led multi-million-dollar projects, as I mentioned, with diverse stakeholders. What's your framework for managing competing priorities?
I would say when it comes to competing priorities, the first thing I look at, I tend to be a bit of a visual person. So I try to think, okay, well, when this project is completely done, what is this supposed to look like? What do I want it to look like? And then once I can kind of have an idea of what I want this to look like or what it should look like, then I take where the project what the project should look like in the end once it's completed. And then I work myself backwards. Well, where am I at right now? And then the next thing I start looking at is what do I need in order to accomplish that mission? That includes, do I have the right people? Do I have the right resources? Closing my information gap. And then once I get those things put together, then I start putting together a plan, a timeline, kind of like milestones, I would say, where you kind of establish, okay, by, let's say if it's a project for, you want to, for instance, like the deal, well, I'll say my first deal. My first deal that I did, it took a little bit longer, but I think it probably would have taken even longer if I didn't start setting milestones. Like, what do I want to have accomplished at the 30-day mark? What do I want to have accomplished at the 60-day mark and the 90-day mark? And then hold yourself accountable for those things. And if you don't hit those mile markers, make sure you're taking notes and then start. And we'll be in the Army, we used to call it an AAR, after action review. And I think an AAR is an excellent tool to do internally, just to ask yourself, what did I want to happen? What did happen? And then the things that didn't happen, why? And then you can kind of keep recalibrating or keep readjusting, as you move forward.
Okay. As you mentioned already, and before we started recording, you've purchased two businesses in the same industry,
Correct.
And working towards the third. So can you walk us through how you approach scaling a business while maintaining operational discipline?
Yeah, I would say, when you become an entrepreneur, there's a lot of stuff on the different social media and stuff about being an entrepreneur, and yes, it is, it is a sexy thing to do. I mean, it's very enjoyable, but it does come with a lot of discipline. It comes with a lot of discipline, things that you have to accept, to kind of temper yourself. So I would say, going into that business set, I was kind of looking at when I go, wait a minute, I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought where I was going with that. Tell me one more time. I'm sorry. Can you just restate the last part of your question?
Sure. Can you walk us through how you approach scaling a business while maintaining operational discipline?
Thank you. All right. So I kind of do it the same thing, like I was saying earlier, with my approach to what I want it to look like. So let's just say in this one, I have for instance, like with this business that I have right now, the second one that I have, I already know exactly what I want to look like, in the end. I know like the type of sales, the type of revenue I want to have. I know the type of relationships I want to have with our customers. And then I also know where we're at right now. So from there, it's like, okay, well, how do I close that gap? And what is it that I need to know? So the first thing is I start looking at visibility. What does our visibility look like? Do people even know, like I'm in a hard location. So, and my footprint, when people just walk by my footprint, do they even know what I am, what I do, that we're here? So that's the first thing I'm going to scale up, just so people know what we do. Then the next thing is, I'll start looking at, because every little thing matters. You want to start looking at the aesthetics of it. One of the things they said, like, was Sam Walton, was it called Made in America? Or Sam Walton wrote a book about pretty much how he built Walmart. And it's a really, really great book. And it's funny because for him to be one of the richest people, I think he's one of the richest people in the world at a certain point. And he, everything for what he did, you can buy it in a book for less than $20, But he said that one of the things that he did was, as he was creating Walmart, he would start going into other retail locations, and he would even measure the distance between the aisles. He would look at how do people have in their retail spaces, how do they have their products stacked and where do they feature them? And that's why I say those aesthetics matter. So that's why I do here in this business. First, the footprint, so people can visibly see us. Then I start looking at signage. Then I start looking at, what is our social media presence? Or do we even have a social media presence? What does our website look like? We recently got on TikTok 50 days ago. I will be honest, I was TikTok dumb for a while. I didn't know anything about TikTok. I don't really want to get it. It's just people doing videos. But back to again with the military thing, you have to be able to adapt. In this market space, TikTok, if you're going to have a visible presence, you need to have a TikTok presence. Fast forward, and I hired a social content manager to manage it because, again, like that's a resource. I don't necessarily know. I'm not as savvy when it comes to social media content. So I hired a social media manager to do that for me. Fast forward 45, 50 days later, we're just coming up on 6,000 followers.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. How? I am not the person to ask. I, only I can tell you is it wasn't me, and that's kind of goes back to hiring people that are better than you at certain things, and I don't like to micromanage, so I like to get people who are good at what they do and just let them go. So, I mentioned the storefront. I mentioned the social media presence. The next third thing I would say is making sure that you hire the right people.
Yeah.
People who can get the job done, people who are intentional, people who love what they do, people who are committed, people who have integrity. That's a major thing. And then you start looking at, your relationships. And that's kind of like, and I kind of put all those things together and kind of figure out. And then when you kind of start to put all those things together along with your vision, you can kind of help build your business plan to accomplish what it is that you want, in the end.
Right. And that's so great that you just mentioned not being like micromanaging and hiring teams. So how do you build and lead teams that can execute your vision without constant oversight?
I would say it's a catch-22 because that's why I say it's very important to hire people that you trust and people that have integrity because there's a strong degree of trust. I would say for me, what's made it easiest for me is I would say I'm in a pretty good position now, but I wasn't always here. And the reason and what got me to this place is because people invested in me. People were willing to take the risk, people were willing to take the risk with me. And they allowed me to make mistakes. And through those mistakes, through those failures, I was able to get better. So I would say for someone else, if you're managing people, understand that they're going to make mistakes too, and you have to be okay with that. But you have to have it in an atmosphere, I would say, in an environment where they feel supported. And it was something that I tell my team all the time. I say, if you make a mistake, or if you make a mistake, we made a mistake. There's no you did this, we did. And one of my it was a lieutenant colonel back when I was a captain told me, he said, anytime you're pointing a finger at someone else, you got three fingers pointing back at you. So I believe in extreme accountability. So anything that if one of my team members makes a mistake or makes an error, I typically will assume the best. No one goes out and wants to make a mistake, or make an error. It just happens, but people, they make decisions based off of the information they have. So I ask myself, well, number one, did I communicate clearly what I wanted from them? Number two, did I give them all the resources? Did I give them all the guidance? Did I put them in a position where if they have questions that they can come back to me? I think if you do those things and you become very clear in your communication, very clear in what you want them to accomplish, and also let them know that they're supported, that it's going to work out pretty well for you.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So you've led an 8-month union negotiation. What did that experience teach you about leadership and communication?
That's actually a really good one. What that taught me is just because you need people. That's the short of it. None of us is going to get there if all of us isn't getting there. You need to learn how to work with people. You need to learn to adjust your strategy. You definitely need to understand how you communicate and the tone of your communication, because the tone of your communication, the inflection of your voice and those things, it can come off not in a way that's going to give you the results that you want. It also taught me that you have to listen. We all, obviously, when you're going through a union negotiation, there can be some emotions and whatnot, but you have to understand where the other person's coming from and why. It's not necessarily someone's trying to get over on someone. It's not an us versus them type. It's not adversarial. And what I learned during that negotiation, that was actually the second time that I did it. I approached it from a standpoint of like, look, we're a team, and my interest is to get you the best deal that I can get you, but I want you to feel that you're taken care of. But also, I have some priorities that I also have to make sure that are taken care of as well. And I believe when you approach someone like that and say, look, I want to see you win. you should be, when you're in a space, or just a leader in general, you should be okay saying, I want to see other people win. And I truly, truly do. Even if I disagree, vantage point of their perspective, I still want to see them win. So I feel like once you approach someone from that position, I want to see you win, they're going to be much more open to wanting to work with you.
Okay. Okay. You've had success with business and real estate acquisitions. What should beginners understand before entering that space?
I would say if you're a beginner, recognize that there's going to be a lot of things that you don't know.
Hmm.
When I was in Ranger School, one thing they used to talk about all the time is tactical patience. Tactical patience, it means that you're not necessarily going to know all the facts. When you start hearing the bang, 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 you don't want to just start running because, you might be running in the direction of the bang, bang, of the bang, bang, bang,
Right. Right.
take a minute, hit the ground,
Hmm.
understand exactly what's going on. Make sure that you fully assess the situation, before you act. You have to, and I would say this too, being a veteran, you also have to understand that, there's, military is the 1%. And one leader said this to me. So with the military being 1%, that means that you need to realize that 99% of the people you come across don't really relate to a lot of your experiences. And you have to kind of keep that in mind. But yeah, I would say for the person who's going into that space, there's gonna be a lot of things that you don't know, but there are a lot of resources. If you start asking questions, there's actually more people that want to help you than you would ever realize. If you just start asking questions, reach out to people, people want to help you. So I would say get into those rooms, recognize that there's things that you're not going to know, but also recognize that none of it's impossible whatsoever. It is 100% doable. It might not happen today or tomorrow, but it is 100% doable. And you just have to just like that Shawshank Redemption, just keep at it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that as well because you're not going to know everything. You're not
Exactly.
going to know everything. And like you say, get inside of those rooms where there are people that are steps above you, ahead of you, and soak it all in. And the one thing that I've found success in is being vulnerable as well.
Yes.
You know,
Uh,
being vulnerable because so many people are there to help you. They want to see you win. Why would a person who's above you want to see you win? One reason that they want to see you win is because later on down the road, you never know. You guys may do business together.
mhm.
You
Well, if
know?
you win, I win. If
Exactly.
if you win, I win. And I'm actually really glad that you mentioned being vulnerable because I will say myself, that's definitely one that I have to check myself regularly on. And when you're coming from a military environment, you are so hyper independent and I can do it. It's okay to get some help. And it's okay to say, I don't know. Sometimes I would almost argue to say saying I don't know sometimes is one of the best things to say because it makes you relatable and you want to be able to relate to people.
Yeah. As I also mentioned in your bio, you're involved in mentorship and organizations like Habitat for Humanity. How has giving back shaped your leadership style?
I would say giving back, the way it's helped me is I'm passionate about service. I'm passionate about mentorship because I would not be where I'm at right now if people did not pour their energy into me, if people did not trust me, if people did not believe in me. Keep in mind, I said earlier when we first started talking, I essentially went to college and about failed out, the very first year. Easily, if no one had believed in me, that could have been my story, and that would have been it.
Yeah.
But other people saw that I was worth giving that chance, and they poured into me and they believed in me. And and I've grown and I've learned from those people. So I honestly see it as a duty, and I see it as a responsibility to give some of that back. That's the people who poured into me and were examples to me. The best way that I can repay them is to take those lessons I learned and pass that on to the next person, so they can be successful. And then they can go out and help more people.
Okay. Man, we could just keep going and keep
Yeah.
going because you've been dropping some very, very great nuggets that I'm sure that my listeners are gonna be able to absorb and put into play and into practice. But before I let you get out of here, what's one lesson you learned the hard way that you wish you would have known earlier?
That's a really good question. I would say one lesson I learned the hard way that I wish I had known earlier would be just because a win doesn't necessarily have to be the way that you see a win being.
Mm.
There's a lot of ways that you can win, and just because it doesn't look the way that, maybe you had a nice pretty picture of what that win was going to look like. It might be disguised as something else, but that doesn't mean it's a win, and it doesn't have to be yours. A win is a win is a win is a win is a win. And it doesn't. Yeah, I would definitely say it doesn't. It doesn't have to be the way that you wanted it to be. Take the successes, be happy about them, and just celebrate them. And don't be. I would say, don't be too hung up on the details.
Okay. All right. So, what does the next 5 years look like for Jacob in his business?
Pretty aggressive. That would be the way that I would describe it. So my company, Van Allen Group, so we're on the web, www.vanallengroup.com. So I've got the two businesses. I've got two flower shops that I own. I've got Van Allen Properties. We'll probably be expanding, closing on a third business, hopefully within the next, I would say, in the next 45 days. I would definitely look at, I'll be buying another property later on this year, probably a bigger property than the two that I already have. Maybe something of probably another multi-unit residential. And then also working on Van Allen Media. That's going to be the next one. And that's why I really I'm really appreciative of this opportunity, because with Van Allen Media, I really want to have an opportunity to speak to other people and just get the message out. Not even so much, for myself, but just to do more things like what you're doing right here. I mean, it really is a really great thing. And just getting the word out to let other people know that they have resources that are out there to inspire and mentor and help people connect. But definitely in the next 5 years, I would say 5 years from now, the intent is probably to own, I'm going to say at least 5 companies, if not maybe 7, to really start building my relationships, to have it probably at least maybe 3 to 4 or 5 properties also. And then the Van Allen Media part of it, and just really grow, and honestly, as I'm growing everything, try to bring as many people as I can with me. 100%.
I love that. Well, Jacob, it's been a blast having you as our guest today. And as we close out, please tell our listeners where we can learn more about you, get in touch with you, and learn about all the fabulous things you have going on right now.
Yeah, so definitely, if you go on my website, we've got www.vanallengroup.com. And then also there's, if you go on TikTok, it's under the Van Allen family. And then on Instagram, also Van Allen Group. But everything you can pretty much get to me on my website. You can reach out to me directly. You can send me an email or anything like that. I'm always happy to help, or any way, shape, or form that I can help anyone. I am more than happy to do that. If you're in the Chicagoland area, or if you ever want to meet up or anything like that, I'm happy for that. Also, I've learned, since I own 2 flower shops, if you ever want to do anything with flowers or events or anything like that, I'm happy to help out with that type of stuff too, or properties or anything.
Awesome. Jacob, again, I want to thank you for your time today, and all the wisdom you have provided to my listeners is greatly appreciated. And I want to thank you, our fans, for tuning in to the Syndication Real Estate Podcast, where we want to add value to you and your investing business. Please tune into our next episode, where we will interview another fantastic investing professional. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Service to Syndication Podcast. We want you to know that we love and appreciate your support, and we are grateful about being a part of your journey to becoming a successful real estate entrepreneur. Please share this episode with a friend who you think will get a lot out of what you just heard. Send it to someone who you know is interested in real estate and dreams of having it all and being the best they can be in all areas of life. And if this was really valuable, share it on your social media stories and timelines. Thank you for watching and listening. Now go be great.